Hey, everybody, welcome back. Silver and black today. And can you hear that, Raider Nation? Can you hear that distinct sound? That massive sigh of relief. Yes, Ashton Jeanty, injured on Sunday at practice. It looked bad. Taken off the field, couldn't put pressure on that leg. We hear late Sunday night that it's an ankle sprain, not a knee, despite some people out there wanted to make crap up that he had torn his ACL. But no, what we know, ankle sprain, we don't know the severity of it. We'll get more information as you listen to this recording, as you watch the video. There might even be some more out, but that is a big sigh of relief. The Raiders, RB1, will be back when we're still waiting to find that out. But a huge sigh of relief for this team, for one of its stars, for its top running back. Whew. I am Scott Gulbransen. Welcome back to Silver and Black Today. I Believe podcast. Do us a favor. Subscribe wherever you get your audio. Just look for Silver and Black Today. If you're watching us on video, hit that subscribe, thumbs up, and the notification bell. But today, despite the Ashton Jeanty news, we'll talk a little bit about it. We're going to get into Kirk Cousins, Fernando Mendoza, and whatnot, where that stands heading into Thursday's game against the 49ers, the finale of the preseason before it gets real for Raider Nation and for the Las Vegas Raiders, the version 2026, led by Klint Kubiak, the new head coach. But today, we're going to lead off starting to talk about what I think is a sneaky big story for this team, as you've seen through camp and through the preseason. Because guess what? Everyone thinks Ashton Jeanty is the only running back story in Vegas. Here's the thing. The Raiders already traded up for another one, and the tape proves why, as does the preseason. Welcome back to the show. Before we get into practice and other news this week, I want to start with a stat line that should have every Raiders fan paying attention to a name that isn't Ashton Jeanty. And again, thank goodness he is not hurt badly. 6'1", 223-pound running back ran a 4.33 40 at the combine. That's wide receiver speed in a running back's body. The Raiders spent a fourth-round pick on him this spring, and through 2 preseason games, he's already forcing his way into the offense. Of course, I'm talking about Mike Washington Jr., and today we're breaking down why he's turned into a legitimate hidden weapon in this offense, not just a training camp headline. Then we're heading into practice this week with questions that are hanging over the entire roster. For example, what is the Raiders' plan at quarterback? Kirk Cousins and Fernando Mendoza are both taking reps. The head coach has dropped a pretty telling line about who's ahead. And I want to talk through exactly what that means and doesn't mean heading into the regular season. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start with who Mike Washington Jr. is for anyone who hasn't been tracking him closely. All right? He came out of the SEC, came out of Arkansas, and the Raiders traded up to get him at pick 122 in this year's draft. That's notable on its own. This isn't a team that stumbled into a day 3 flyer. They moved assets to go get him. And remember, this is a backfield where the Raiders already invested in a top 6 pick, a year ago in Ashton Jeanty, who again, thank goodness, only has an ankle sprain. They spent draft capital again on a running back. That tells you Klint Kubiak and his staff, John Spytek, had a specific plan for how they wanted to build that running back room. Now, here's the proof part, because, hype during camp is cheap. It just is. We hear it every year. Dante Thornton Jr., Malik Benson a little bit this year. We'll see how that pans out. But production is not, right? Mike Washington Jr., game 1 of the preseason against Arizona, Washington puts up a game-high 63 yards on just 6 carries. The headline run was a 53-yarder, a straight house call, and it directly set up Fernando Mendoza's touchdown throw on that same drive. Just did. And again, that's not garbage time stat against a scout team defense. That's a rookie 4th-round pick breaking a long run against a defense trying to make the team. So that was game one we saw of Mike Washington Jr. in the silver and black. Then game two, the joint practice and preseason matchup with Houston last week. 9 carries, 56 yards. That's 6.2 yards a carry. He also caught 2 passes for 18 yards, which matters more than it sounds like, and I'll get into why in a second here. Then in joint practice work against the Texans specifically, he had a run where he stiff-armed a Texans linebacker into the ground on his way to the end zone. Those weren't scrubs. Klint Kubiak's response to that was telling, right? Kubiak said, guys who perform well in games have to show it to you first in practice. In other words, this wasn't a fluke, kids. The staff is watching the practice reps translate directly to what we're seeing during weekday games, the preseason games, which have so far been on Thursdays. So the big question here isn't just, is Mike Washington Jr. talented? Can he make the roster? He's making this roster. But I think the bigger question is, so why does this matter for the Raiders schematically, right? Of course, you know Kubiak comes from Seattle, where he ran a backfield last year to win the Super Bowl with Kenneth Walker as the lead back and Zach Charbonnet getting real, meaningful touches as a change of pace piece. That's Kubiak's blueprint here. That's the blueprint here. Jeanty is the lead back, no question, when he comes back from this ankle injury. But Washington profiles as exactly the kind of second piece Kubiak has used before to make a backfield more dangerous, not just deeper. It's not just about depth. It's more dangerous. It's more dynamic. It gives you more opportunity to do more in that Kubiak scheme. Right? Now, here's Kubiak in his own words on Washington. He said, quote, guys are earning roles. When guys are having success, they carve out roles, and that's where he's headed. Now, we know, and you're getting to know Klint Kubiak better. Not a big personality. His players joke about it. He's all business. I've said it every show for the last 2 weeks, and I love that. He's about winning. He's about getting this roster built. He's not here to collect a paycheck. He wants to bring that Raider greatness back. But what he said about Washington, that's about as direct as a coach gets about a role being real. Okay? Kubiak might not tell jokes. He might not laugh and snicker and banter back and forth with the media. So when he says things, you listen carefully, read between the lines. But in this case, with Washington Jr., he's direct. Guys are carving out roles. He's carved out a role for himself. Dang, that's pretty sharp. Now, I do want to give this full picture because the story isn't only good news. I always give you balance, right? Some of you don't like that. Oh, he's not a Raider fan. Whatever. But Kubiak also said this about Mike Washington Jr. He said, quote, Mike's doing a fantastic job running the ball. We have to keep getting him better in all facets of his game. So clearly there's some other things to work on for Mike Washington Jr. We know he fumbled a lot in college. Now, knock on wood, we haven't seen that so far with the Raiders, except in a couple practice sessions. Ball was punched out by Max Crosby, so on. But the translation, the pass protection and the receiving game are still a work in progress for Mike Washington Jr. And that's to be expected. He's a rookie. NFL requires different things. This scheme requires different things. Got to be able to pass protect. Got to be able to catch the ball. He's caught the ball nicely out of the backfield a couple times. And that's actually the line between hidden weapon and every down back. It just is. But right now, Washington is dangerous with the ball in his hands between the tackles. There's no question. You see the film. You guys have seen it all. You've seen the highlights. But what unlocks more snaps, more third down work specifically, is whether he can pick up a blitzing linebacker or run a real route out of the backfield. So we know Mike Washington Jr. can run the ball. He's big. He's got great balance. He finds the holes. But being able to run real routes out of the backfield, that's the development you should be watching for this week and into the season. Right? Because every player, every young player, we've talked a lot about Mendoza here, obviously, about his development. But you got to watch that. So this game against the 49ers on Thursday, I'm going to be watching to see how they run him out of the backfield on routes. And then if he gets some time behind the ones or twos at offensive line, how he picks up those blitzes. So that's going to be what to watch for when it comes to the Mike Washington Jr. story and the development. And I have to add, too, before we kind of move on and start talking about other things, is one more thing I liked about Mike Washington Jr. After his first career preseason touch, Washington said this. He said, quote, "I got my first touch. I got hit. I guess I had my welcome to the NFL moment." And the reason in which I bring that up, because the humility matches the tape, right? It's hard sometimes because you're watching guys, you see their talent, you see what their role could be on this team behind Ashton Jeanty, in this case with Mike Washington Jr., and you look for the character piece, right? The character piece is big in what you're trying to build here with the Raiders in this organization. But that humility, like I said, it matches the tape. This isn't a guy who thinks he's arrived, right? Because he's on an NFL roster as of now. I love that he's treating every practice like an audition, which, by the way, is exactly what Kubiak just told us he wants to see. Remember, after the last game, he was quizzed about Fernando Mendoza, the pick six, and then him recovering from it. And was Cousins the starter? The direct question about who's your starting quarterback. And he said, nobody's job is secure. I want to see everybody working to earn their job. Nobody's gets a pass. Nobody's, they're a starter. Okay, Max Crosby. We'll see. But I love that because all we've heard from Mike Washington Jr. is, I got to work hard. And he does it on the practice field. He does it during the preseason games. And then the coach gets to the podium and tells us exactly that Mike Washington Jr. is following the blueprint in which Kubiak has established as the standard inside the building in Henderson. Wow. I mean, this is the guy you want. Now, for all of you, he could be the starter. No, he's not the starter. Ashton Jeanty is a starter when Ashton Jeanty comes back from this injury, which hopefully is not going to keep him out very long. Hopefully he's ready for week one. If he's not ready for week one, then Mike Washington Jr. is going to get an opportunity maybe to be RB1. If Ashton Jeanty's not ready for week one, I expect the Raiders maybe to go out and sign, although the running back room is shaping up nicely, even outside of Washington Jr. We'll talk about that before the game on Thursday. But I say all this because my takeaway on Washington heading into this week, right, for you guys, giving you the blueprint here from Gully. Watch his touches in practice the next few days, specifically anything on third down or in a 2-minute setting. If he's getting run in those situations, that's the tell that the receiving and protection concerns are closing fast. I mean, they're just narrowing for Kubiak. And that this committee backfield is going to lean more heavily on him than a lot of people outside the building currently expect. And the injury to Jeanty adds a new dynamic to that. It really does. But again, we don't know the severity of the Jeanty injury and how long he's going to be out. Now, Washington's snap count and role this season are going to be shaped by one more thing. I mean, something more than anything else. And that's going to be what this offense looks like under center. Right? Cousins, Mendoza, how that looks. So let's shift to the biggest storyline in the building right now, which we knew going in. I told you this, especially with the national media playing up the Fernando Mendoza. It's clicks, it's views, it's all of that. He's the first overall pick in the draft. He's a media darling. He is a, quote, machine. His awkwardness or his geekiness, whatever you want to call it, is endearing. People love it. It's the talk of the NFL. But every practice this week is going to get filtered through one question. Who is starting at quarterback in week 1? By the way, make sure you check out our new video, which is the silver and black verdict. And I talk directly about this. But nonetheless, here we go. Here's where things stand as I talk to you today. Kirk Cousins, remember, 4-time Pro Bowler, veteran presence, is in a competition with Fernando Mendoza. This year's number 1 overall pick. Just that's the story you're going to see all over the headlines, not only locally, but also nationally. Just not going to get away from it. Now, for those of you who want Mendoza to start right away, you're really going to jump on that. For those of us who believe that Kirk Cousins will be the starter week 1 and should be, not so much. On paper, it's a real competition. In practice so far, it really hasn't been one. Now, it could change this week. If we see Mendoza taking a lot more first-team reps, as of Sunday into Monday, Cousins was still taking the reps for the first team. Cousins has taken the bulk of the first-team reps all camp. But through 3 preseason games, he's played all of 1 series. That's it. And that's usually the tell with a veteran quarterback in a competition, right? That he's the guy. Teams don't sit their guy that much unless they've already made up their mind and are just managing his workload and his health. You don't want, he's older. And he's got an injury history. You don't want to put him out there. If he's your guy, you don't want to put him out there because he can get hurt. And then we look at Mendoza's most recent preseason outing, which was rough by the box score, 8 of 15 for 86 yards. And, of course, he threw a pick 6 on just his 3rd attempt of the game. In the joint practice work against Houston, it was a mixed bag, too. He had a red zone interception to Jalen Petre. But he also flashed real chemistry. Sharp throws to Brock Bowers and to Devin Tompkins. So there's that. But now here's the sentence that tells you almost everything about where this is heading. Klint Kubiak, when he was asked directly about Cousins, said it's his job to lose. That doesn't mean he can't lose it. Clearly, if you say that, there's always a chance. But I want you to sit with that phrasing for a second. Very different. Very different. That's not they're competing. That's not we'll see how camp goes. Whether you like it or not, that's a coach naming his starter and putting the burden of proof on the other guy to be bad enough to change his mind. So, in my mind, barring an injury or a genuine collapse, Kirk Cousins is starting week 1 against Miami. Argue if you want. Call in 702-900-7869. Send me your video to mail@silverandblacktoday.com. If you disagree with me, put a comment down below on YouTube, on X, on Facebook, TikTok, wherever you are watching this, and tell me why I'm wrong. But if you tell me I'm wrong, you're ignoring all the evidence. You're not watching what Klint Kubiak is saying. But, and there's a but, and this is the important part. That doesn't mean Mendoza's story this week is a bad one. It doesn't. It's not bad, good, and only. There's some nuance here. Incredible nuance. Kubiak's language on Mendoza has been developmental, not dismissive. Remember, he said there's plenty to clean up, plenty to get better at when he was going off at halftime against Houston. And that's really coach speak for this guy is still learning the offense at NFL speed. It's not easy. I don't care how good you're going to be or potential to be or how good you are. That's not this guy can't play. That's just reality. Reality of a young quarterback playing against the best athletes in the world at the sport. And because I'm evidence-based here, I'm not just spouting off stuff because I want to believe it. I'll point to one more piece of evidence that didn't come from the Raiders building at all. In fact, it came from the outside. Houston edge rusher Will Anderson, who lined up against Mendoza in that joint practice, said this about him. And I'm speaking directly from the quote here. He said, quote, "I love the way he was cheering his O-line on. He's going to be a really great quarterback in this league." That's Will Anderson. And that's not that you don't owe an opponent nice fluff PR language. So Will Anderson was being genuine. That's an opposing player. Someone with zero reason to inflate a rookie stock, saying the poise and the leadership are already there, even when the results on a given rep aren't. So don't lose the full picture here with Mendoza. And then you've seen all the analysts, and I know they have a vested interest in playing up Fernando Mendoza, although the Raiders aren't on any national games. So it's not like they're promoting a date or any of that. Are there still some analysts out there, B-level, maybe a couple A-level, who aren't big believers in Fernando Mendoza? There are. But the people I respect the most, especially some of the quarterbacks who played the position in the NFL for an extended period of time, all say they love what they see. Is he ready? No. But they like what they see. And it's the nuances, it's the small things that don't show up in stats, don't show up on highlight reels. Some of you want to focus on the pick six. Another Jamarcus Russell. I mean, I've seen comments like this. It's crazy. But they're not watching. They're not watching closely. They're not watching how he handles pressure, how he throws the ball away. Yes, he makes mistakes. He's going to continue to make some throughout this entire season if he sees playing time, which I think he will. But when it comes to this week, here's what I'm watching for in practice. First and foremost, does the rep distribution change at all, even a little, or does Cousins keep getting the overwhelming share of first-team snaps? That's number one. That tells you right there. You don't need to hear what anybody says. Go by what they're doing and the actions. Second, does Mendoza get any run with starters in situational work, red zone, third down, 2-minute, the packages you'd actually use in a real game plan, not just preseason fluff vanilla jazz? That's what you're going to be looking for. And third, how does Fernando Mendoza respond after a bad rep? We saw last week, he threw a pick six, came back, he was 6 for 6. To me, that was the stat of the game. Not his stat line, but how do you handle adversity in the NFL when you stink it up? Now, there is some good analysis about the pass to Mike Washington Jr. being behind him and all that. And did Mike Washington Jr. have some responsibility too? Sure, maybe he did. He's a rookie as well. He makes mistakes. We talked about him earlier part of the show. He makes mistakes. He's not a complete NFL player yet. But Will Anderson's comment about him staying locked in after mistakes, exactly the trait that carries a young quarterback through a rookie learning curve. And to me, it's something we can actually watch for in practice and the reporting from the people on the ground this week. That's what you got to watch for. I mean, look at what happened with Tennessee and Cam Ward. I like Cam Ward coming to college. Cam Ward's struggling. He's not getting it. How did he respond after mistakes on Sunday night? Not good. Fernando Mendoza responds to mistakes in the way you want him to. So again, my read heading into the season, Kirk Cousins is this week 1 starter, and it's not particularly close. But this isn't a quarterback controversy so much as it's a development plan. I've said this all along. Spytek, Kubiak, Brady, to a certain degree, have a plan for Fernando Mendoza, and they're not letting popular opinion, they're not letting ESPN, Fox Sports, The Athletic, any of the big operations out there that cover the sport, they're not letting them force their timeline along because people want to see Fernando Mendoza, including some really good analysts who said he should start week 1. They don't care. They have a plan. And for a franchise who's had a mess of the last 25, 30 years, actually sticking to a plan. I know patience is tough in today's society, Raider Nation, but the fact that they're sticking to a plan, and it appears they're going to through this situation, should be very exciting and bolster your opinion of this franchise. For those of you who have suffered through all of this over the years, it's a great, great sign. Having a plan and actually sticking to it and not deviating it so far is big. Remember, the Raiders spent the number 1 overall pick on Fernando Mendoza for a reason. And everything coming out of the building says they're building him up on a timeline, not throwing him in before he's ready. They have a timeline. It might not be your timeline. It might not be ESPN's timeline or any other analyst's timeline. They have one. And if you don't like it, top. They don't care because they're invested in Fernando Mendoza. They don't want to screw it up. They want to make sure they bring him along. So this week's practice reps are going to tell us more about that timeline than anything that happens in the final preseason game. Right? By the way, we're going to get to calls and your comments coming up in just a second. But I want to wrap this portion of the podcast up, and say, look, starting off, I talked about Mike Washington Jr. He's already proven he can be a real weapon in this backfield. The tape backs it up. And the question now is how much more the coaching staff trusts him in the pass protection and the passing game as the season goes on. And at quarterback, I'll beat the dead horse. This is Kirk Cousins' team to start the season. Just is. Fernando Mendoza is the future, and the plan seems to be building him up the right way rather than rushing him. But both these threads are worth tracking closely in practice this week. And of course, I'll have updates on Thursday as we get closer to kickoff. Oh, I forgot one thing. I want to dive into this before we move to the Raider Nation Court of Public Opinion. And then it's shifting to a group that's not getting the same kind of praise Mike Washington Jr. just got, and that's the wide receivers. Going back to July when I came back on the air, I told you I was really concerned about this group. Many of you poo-pooed that. They don't need a number 1. They got Brock Bowers. True, Brock Bowers is a freaking freak, amazing athlete and going to do amazing things if healthy for this team. But, after the preseason game against Houston and the joint practice that came with it, Klint Kubiak on his Friday press conference did not hide how he felt about the wide receiver room. Here's what he said. And again, I'm going to give you the full quote because I don't want to put words in his mouth. Kubiak said, quote, "I learned a lot and that we need to get a lot better fast. We took a step backwards," he said against Houston. "Doesn't mean we can't go forward, but right now we're trying to find someone that is accountable, big word for Klint Kubiak, and can help us on Sunday. Still looking." Wow. Now that's an indictment against that wide receiver room. It's a challenge to them, of course. He talked about accountability. He hasn't seen anyone step up yet. No one has stepped up. And you know this because you watched the game. Not that there hasn't been a nice catch here or there, a nice move here or there, but there's nobody who's came out there and just stepped up and you said, wow, on fire. That is about as direct as a head coach gets in August. He's not hiding behind coach speak there. He's saying the position group got worse over the last week, and he's still looking for someone he can trust in a real game. Now, does that mean the Raiders go out and sign somebody off the street? They may. My buddy Mo Moten up on Just Blog Baby wrote about 5 trade candidates. I invite you to read that. It was a good one. But let's talk about who's actually in that room. Trey Tucker, Jalen Naylor, who many of you were very excited about, are the two names that keep coming up as the presumed top of the depth chart, i.e. wide receiver 1. After that, it gets murky, and I'll be honest with you. The reporting isn't fully consistent on the third name in that group. Some of it points to Jack Besh. Some of it points to Noah Brown. I mean, there's different guys out there. Malik Benson, of course, you've heard. He had the 2 big drops, although one of them was a nice play by the defensive back. So I'm not going to pretend that I've nailed down cleanly what's going on here. So take that as watch this space rather than a settled fact. We'll see. They got this week. We'll see what happens this week. And then, of course, you got the game against San Francisco. But beyond those guys, you've got a group actually fighting for roster spots. I talked about 6th-round rookie Malik Benson. Dante Thornton Jr. hasn't done anything. Drake Young and the undrafted depth. And I think Benson's actually a useful case study here because Kubiak's comments on him tell you exactly how this coaching staff is grading the whole room right now. On Benson, Kubiak said he's got a good head start playing good football. Now, that sounds good on its own, of course. But then he added, he has a lot in front of him and a lot that he needs to prove to us. Bing, gauntlet thrown challenge put out there by the coach. That's praise, yes, but with an asterisk. And I think that asterisk is really the story of the entire wide receiver room right now. Nobody in that group has fully earned the coaching staff's trust yet. Not even the guy getting the nicer comments. Right? That's telling. And if you don't think it matters, you're not paying attention because they need a wide receiver room that is accountable and that can play. I'm not saying they got to be Justin Jefferson. I'm not saying that at all. You just need consistency. You need somebody they can count on and they trust. But also another reason why Fernando Mendoza doesn't make sense right now. But here's the part I want to make sure we connect because it matters. The Raiders waited until the 6th round to draft a wide receiver this year. 6th round. That is a front office statement. That says we like what we already have in that room. We don't need to invest more premium capital there, at least not this year. But then Kubiak's "we took a step backward" comment is basically a direct rebuttal of that bet. 1 week before his roster gets cut down to 53. So there's a real contrast worth sitting with here. We just spent time on Mike Washington Jr., on how the ground game and Washington Jr. and Jeanty together is outperforming what people expected in camp. Meanwhile, the passing game skill position group is the one getting called out publicly by the head coach. Those two things are happening on the same offense, the same camp, the same week. So again, here's what I'm watching in practice. Does the target distribution start to clarify who Kubiak actually trusts? Do Tucker and Naylor start to clearly separate from the rest of the group? And does Benson or Thornton, for that matter, force his way into more first-team reps before cutdown day? Because right now, by the head coach's own words, that job is still wide open. So it's going to be interesting. You need to have production out of the wide receiver room, but more importantly, as I said earlier in this segment, you have to have a coach that trusts the roster. Right now, Klint Kubiak doesn't think much of this wide receiver group. Can that change quickly? Sure it can. As I said, Tucker and Naylor, if they come out and they ball out in practice and they get some time against the 49ers, if they do and they show him something where he feels good about going into roster cuts with them, great. If not, maybe they sign somebody off the street. We'll see. If they sign somebody this week or after the 49er game, that tells you where Klint Kubiak's still at. But those are the things that I'm watching in practice this week, and I invite you to do the same thing. All right, it's time for the Raider Nation Court of Public Opinion, plus tax, where you take over the show either with your voicemail. Again, you can call in 700. Jeez, come on, Scott. 702-900-7869. I got it. Numbers aren't my thing. 702-900-7869. Leave a comment on any of the socials or on YouTube, Facebook, X.com, wherever. Or you can send me a video. Waiting for the videos. Come on. Mail at silverandblacktoday.com. So there you go. All right. We're going to get to a call, one of our most valued callers, Hall of Fame callers. We haven't heard from a while, but here is our buddy out in the Central Valley. We get a lot of calls from the Central Valley. Here is Jacob in Fresno. If you haven't heard Jacob before, you'll be entertained. Here we go.
Gulbransen and Midtown Mountain. This is Jacob of Fresno. What's up, guys? I know it's been a little while. Been pretty busy. Can't lie. But more importantly than my busy life, the Raiders. Fernando Mendoza, the generational talent that we have now received. Threw a pick six in a preseason game, guys. What are we going to do? I mean, besides that, he had a very good game. Balls are being dropped left and right. But it's clear that the generational talent that we thought that we had in Mendoza is now Jamarcus Russell 2.0. There's no other logical explanation, right, guys? That's what I keep hearing. Honestly, I'm not really hearing that. But I do know that this is where Raider Nation would start to panic. Because I've been part of Raider Nation for coming on 2 decades now. And I'm very well versed with the panic. The panic is real. Anytime we start to see something go a little bit south, everything else is just, it's the conclusion. Everything's done. Our goose is cooked. Fernando Mendoza is Jamarcus Russell. Can you guys just give the folks some reason to believe that Fernando Mendoza is not Jamarcus 2.0? I can give you a couple. Look at last season, what he did to Indiana. He was a Heisman, came out of nowhere, was nowhere even considered in the potential Heisman voters. Indiana was nowhere considered even a potential BCS, or not the new college football playoff contender. Nobody thought they were going to put up a fight. But look what they did. And what's the difference there? I say it's Fernando. You know, and you can talk about Cousins-Mendoza. He did some great things. He did. There's no denying that. But Fernando is a great quarterback. And if the eye test doesn't tell you anything, then you just don't watch it. Because the guy makes some throws that are just incredible. I can explain it to you. But I cannot make you understand it, guys. You just got to look. You got to use your eyes because this guy throws footballs. I loved Derek Carr. He's never thrown a football the way Fernando Mendoza can throw the football. This guy is special. He's going to be able to do great things. We just got to be patient with him, and we got to build around him. What are we going to do, guys? You help me out. You let me know. You take it easy. Go Raiders.
All right, there's Jacob from Fresno. Jacob, thanks for the call, man. Keep him coming. And clearly, he hasn't listened or watched in a while because he doesn't know that Mo isn't on the show anymore. Mo's still my buddy, good friend. There was a couple of social media comments. Mo was on with Murph, and people were like, what happened? Nothing happened. No drama. We got busy schedules. They don't always align, so it made it tougher to do the show. And I retired, and then Believe brought me back in. Remember my first episode? I did the Godfather 3 thing. But he brings up a good point. Any comparison to a bust quarterback this early is ridiculous. Plus, it ignores all the evidence. When you look at Fernando Mendoza, what he did during rookie OTAs, getting the offensive line in the hotel room to start blocking through the playbook, the way he studies football, the way he loves football. Jamarcus Russell didn't do it. I'm not going to re-prosecute Jamarcus Russell, who's moved on with his life, whether you like him, hate him, whatever. I'm not going to re-prosecute that. But these two guys are beyond different. They are two different species when it comes to football players. So if somebody in Raider Nation wants to call Fernando Mendoza a bust after a pick six in a preseason game, the negative mindset spiraling happens. People get into it. And Jacob brought up a good point. For those of you in Raider, you have battered fan syndrome. You've had decades of everything going wrong. So when things seemingly go right and then there's a challenge, oh, here we go again. And I understand. But this is a different kid. I can't sit here and tell you today he's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback that leads the Raiders to a Super Bowl trophy. I can't say that. Nobody can say that because we don't know. What I can tell you is that if you look at it, if you read everything, if you listen to the man, young man, what would make you believe that? He's got the head, he's got the talent to be successful. We'll see how it plays out. But the overreaction, that's the world we live in. Everything is an overreaction. Everybody's looking to be outraged. Not everybody. Certain segment of people want to be outraged, disappointed, negative, death scroll, all that stuff. Jacob is not that way, thank goodness. And I hope you aren't either. As I said earlier in the show, the Raiders have a plan for Mendoza. Let it work its way through. Patience, grasshopper. Okay? So we'll see. Jacob, as always, man, we appreciate you calling in. 702-900-7869 is the number. We'll get to some comments now. For those of you listening, you won't see it, but I will read it. This one comes from our good buddy here in Cincinnati, Black Friday 513, up on YouTube. And he says, I, for one, have to reel it back in. I keep telling myself Mendoza is the top pick overall. He should look a certain way, but forgetting he still needs development just like any other player. As long as he continues to progress and develop, we will be fine. Coach called him an ascending player, which gives me confidence. That, again, is Black Friday 513 on YouTube. Yes, yes, and yes. You reinforce what Jacob said in his call. You reinforce what I said earlier in the show about the plan the Raiders have for Mendoza. I understand. You get excited, especially as a fan. You get excited. Number one overall pick, quarterback. Finally, got a quarterback. Let's see him go. Oh, he throws a pick six. Oh, he's not going to be the starter. Oh, I get that. I totally get it. But you just got to let it play out. Right? A year from now, if we're having a conversation that Mendoza hasn't progressed, then we're in trouble. That's what I would tell you if I'm a fan. But that's not the case. He's already making progress. Might not be as fast as you want it to be, but that's the way it is. So, good comment. That's Black Friday 513 up on YouTube. Appreciate your comment. Well, let's go to the next one now. Here on the Raider Nation Court of Public Opinion. And, of course, you can be a part of it. And this is Special Ops J, maybe a member of the military, I don't know, up on YouTube. It says, Scott, Houston is a great barometer for this very young Raider team. In my opinion, this Raider roster is 2 more drafts away from being a contender. Finally, this franchise has a directive. That is Special Ops J up on YouTube. Thanks for the comment, man. We appreciate it. And yeah, again, I said it before the draft and after the draft and since the draft and since camp started that the Raiders could not address every single need in one draft or one free agency class. They went out and spent a ton of money in free agency. So far, it looks like the draft is going to work out good. We'll see. Only time will tell. But yeah, you got to stack good drafts. You can't just have one and it's all good. And I talked about it earlier with the wide receiver room, right? They waited until the 6th round. They addressed a bunch of other needs, defensive back, trade on Stukes, at safety, all those. Before. So you couldn't get that wide receiver one. You couldn't address some of the depth you need at other spots. So Special Ops J is right. You need a couple more drafts. Now, if this draft hits, like I talked about Mike Washington Jr. and these guys, if Malik Benson comes along, all these guys, if they get a really good amount of production out of this year's draft class and they can build on it next year, then yes, a couple years from now, you're having a whole different conversation. So I love that comment, and I think that he's absolutely correct on that one. Be a part of the show. Leave your comment up on YouTube, x.com, wherever you're watching us or listening to us. You can leave it up on Spotify, wherever. I check all those. Or 702-900-7869 is the number to be a part of the show if you want to be on with your voice. All right. Now we're going back onto YouTube. Shield60. Shield60 with this comment says, "What's up, Scott? Mendoza will be okay. Aikman, Manning, and some of the other greats had a slow start. He's a rookie, and people need to give him a chance to acclimate to the league. Mendoza has good traits. I trust him. God bless you, Scott." That's from Shield60 up on YouTube. God bless you too, my friend. I appreciate that very, very much. And yes, exactly. Patience, patience, patience. Hardest word in the English language, patience. Disappointment, challenges, yeah. Nothing good comes easily. Just doesn't. Yeah, sometimes you get into a groove and things kind of move along, but there's always bumps in the road. Fernando Mendoza is going to have his bumps. So what? So, but again, Shield60, there's going to be people out there who, no matter what you tell them, right, they're going to always go to the negative, and they're always going to say that Fernando Mendoza isn't as good as everybody thought he was, right? So don't pay attention to it. Those people will be proved wrong, in my view. Now, if I'm wrong, I'll admit it too, but I don't think so. And I think you bring up some names there, Manning, Aikman, these guys, they don't have to. Look, the Raiders aren't a premier level team yet where they're going to be on a bunch of national games where they're trying to boost ratings like they do with Mahomes and all that stuff. These guys are speaking the truth, but they think. They're analyzing and showing, and they played the position at a very high level in the NFL. So I agree with you on that. But we'll have to wait time. Be a part of the show. 702-900-7869. Mail at silverandblacktoday.com. That's where you send your videos. But please be a part of it. Get on there. By the way, we're going back on the radio in Las Vegas. First week of the season, 101.5 KDAWN, KDAWN, 101.5 KDAWN on the FM dial, baby. That's right. It's on the FM dial. Are you ready for some Barry White? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, we're going to be back on the radio for our 8th season there. We appreciate that. So listen, if you're in Vegas, you can hear us there. 5 p.m. on Saturdays. So getting you ready for the night before the game. Whole different show, brand new show from what you hear during the week on the podcast. So make sure you get in there. I love it. All right, so there we go. Make sure you check out the new videos we'll be doing called the Silver and Black Verdict. Shorter videos. And today, you can go back and watch my video from yesterday about Fernando Mendoza. Judge Gully in session. He's going to give you the verdict on whether or not Mendoza should start. I've already told you in this show, but for a more pointed, short video on your coffee break or your lunch break or as you're sitting at home eating your dinner, check it out. We appreciate that very much. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Hit the thumbs up and the notifications bell so you know every time we have a new video. And don't forget, even if you're a YouTube viewer, please go subscribe to the audio version. We are a Believe podcast. We appreciate that as well. Those downloads mean everything to us. So thank you very much for that. Okay, Raider Nation, we will talk to you before the game on Thursday. So look for the podcast Thursday morning and the video Thursday afternoon. And we'll be back here talking about what we've seen at practice. We'll get more info on the Ashton Jeanty injury, and we'll keep track of those reps for Cousins and Mendoza in practice. For everybody at Believe, for everybody here at Silver and Black today, appreciate you guys being with us. I'm Scott Gulbransen. Do me a favor, Raider Nation, take care of one another, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye now.